Hi guys, and welcome to the $1 Million Mindset. I'm your host, Scott Andrews, and it's my goal through this podcast and company to give guys all around Australia and the world the confidence, courage, and clarity to create their dreams and accomplish their goals. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you today to a very exciting, heart-driven entrepreneur who's burst onto the business and coaching scene back in 2014 at the ripe age of 21. Since then, he's written a best-selling book, grown his company from $0 to $1 million in the space of 10 months, and then on to $10 million in the first 5 years. And if that wasn't impressive enough, he's also hired an entire island for a documentary, run seminars all around the world, launched a podcast with the likes of Dr. DeMartini and Lewis Howes, been on the cover of Life Coaching magazine, and given over $100,000 to charity. And so it's with great honor I introduce our very first guest to the $1 Million Mindset podcast stage, the man they call the coach's coach, Mr. Ryan Magdziarz. Welcome, legend.
Thanks, man. That was a very beautiful intro. I actually had forgotten some of those things that I'd done. So listening in and hearing some of those accomplishments, I was thinking, wow, that's cool. So thanks for that nice intro, man.
That was going to be my first thing to ask you. How does it feel hearing all those things? You're 26 now, you've achieved all these accomplishments, but in reflecting back, what does that make you feel hearing that from somebody else?
Well, I'm actually 27.
So 27, sorry.
No, that's
apologies.
Okay. No, I should have just claimed it and just said, yeah, I'm 26. No, 27. And man, it's a really interesting question. And it's refreshing, because I think a lot of the time people create vision boards. So they're always looking forward and wanting to create, which they haven't yet created, but very rarely do people pause and just look back and go, what have I actually already done? And I actually had a coach once, a relationship coach, Renee, and she got me to create an accomplishment board. And I used to look at it every day. This was 2.5 years ago. And it reminded me of that. And it's a really refreshing thing to do. So thanks for that intro. And I think for the guys that are listening in as well, it's very important to be able to recognize the progress when you're on the journey of growth, because it's always happening day by day.
Yeah. I had a coach recently, a few months ago, Laura, who I think when I was kind of really focusing exactly like you said on the forwards, we've always got this perfection. A lot of us have this perfection mindset and this achievement mindset. And the first thing she said to me when she saw that I was getting a bit overwhelmed was like, look at what you've accomplished in just the last 3 months. Like, you've got all these things you want to do and you're super excited about it, but focusing on the gap from where you are now to where you want to be, that's what's going to make you feel flustered. If you look back at where you've come from, it's just a really, bittersweet kind of really nice moment to really just sit back and go, wow, just be grounded, be present. This is where I am. This is so cool. Enjoy this. Enjoy the struggle.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've done a few controversial videos on the topic of personal development being more destructive than constructive sometimes. And the essence of the video, or the main topic's always been around the fact that when you get into personal development, a lot of the time people that discover it before actually getting into it were actually feeling pretty solid about where they're at in their life. And the moment they get told that they, should be up here and they start bringing these shoulds in, then the distance between where they are when they enter and where they think they should be all of a sudden is like the size of the disappointment in themselves, and therefore the degree of unhappiness they have. Yeah. And so I think it's really cool that we've started this podcast interview with that in mind, because it's so important. We get into personal development to live a more empowered life. And fulfillment, in my eyes, is the essence of that. If you get in there and you start hating on yourself, you're going, it's just a complete contradiction for the purpose of it.
100%. I call it the unhappiness gap. It's like, the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And if I think something that I learned from you a while back was just about having gratitude for where you're at, but really still being able to strive for greatness. And it's that infinity loop of going, okay, well, it's not if you have just greatness and you just striving, but you're not grounded and grateful for where you are, then that's no good. But if you're also just only grateful and you're not striving for greatness, then you're not really progressing and growing either. So it's kind of like that flow of having both.
Yeah, I like that, man. That's cool. Nice.
Yeah. So basically, what I was going to ask you first was, what's been, of all these accomplishments, I've got some amazing other things here for people just to know that obviously you had a scholarship to a private school, a handicap of 3 at age 13 in golf, for all the golf pros out there. I mean, you'd respect how amazing and how much discipline must go into that. For someone who myself was definitely not playing golf and getting scholarships, I was up to mischief and running around. What sort of a mindset do you think that you had at that age that allowed you to kind of have that amount of discipline? Like, what was that an outlet for you? Was it something where what was it about it that you felt so motivated and so disciplined to achieve such, even just at that age, those types of things?
Yeah, man. I think it's a really interesting thing for me to ponder, because I think there's some really beautiful things for me to reflect on there. Like I definitely know that a part of my purpose on this planet is to be somebody that is quite driven and show people what's possible. But on the same token, a large amount of that success that I achieved and have achieved, even recently with some of those things that you were reading out when you introed me, came from a place of insecurity, from a script. We've done some work on this within the program that you're in as a client of mine, but I talk about it a lot, which is we all have a survival script, which is essentially something that our subconscious mind writes between 0 and 7, based upon what we're given either a positive or negative stroke from our parents in order to appease them. So if we get told, bad, like if you're singing in the house and you get told to shut up all the time by your dad, for example, that's a negative stroke. And then your subconscious will be like, oh, don't be loud and express.
100%.
Because then if you do that, you're not going to be loved from your parents. And if you're not loved, you're not going to stay safe, because we're dependent in those years. And that's your survival script. And mine was very much based upon my dad giving me positive strokes when I achieved and negative strokes when I didn't achieve. So my outlet being a mixture of attempting to appease my dad in particular. My mum was just very unconditionally loving, but my dad was very stern, and obviously that's had its benefits in my life. But it was also because I grew up in quite a shaky household, with my dad also being a drug dealer, and things I found out later in life were like people broke into our house and tried to steal drugs, and like we'd been like threatened at my mum was threatened at gunpoint, before that.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of environment that I grew up in, but I didn't remember any of that stuff. But I was still a very nervous kid. Like I'd cry before I went to school every single day when I was in primary school. And so kind of that being really quiet, like I used to just write out math sums when I was in prep, just write out math sums, get gold stars from my teachers. And I didn't really, I became someone that hung around with the popular kids just through being good at things. But I became good at things because that was what I was trying to do to appease my dad. But I was super nervous. So it was this really weird balance between those two things. And I guess it kind of sounds a little bit negative, but it's just good to be aware of what drives you to become who you are. And I don't necessarily look down at that. I go, wow, that's what's formed me into who I am. And now that personality can express itself through the world. And
100%.
I can relate to people who are driven. Like I can relate really well to entrepreneurs and business owners because of that. And it's still a part of who I am. It's just now being aware of it. It allows me to be driven from a more healthy place, as opposed to being driven from an unhealthy place and not even realizing that's what's driving me.
Thanks for sharing that, man. I think I can 100% relate different scenarios, but in the sense of we've all got this little thing. Like I've always been super driven as well, but coming from an insecure place 100%. And you've probably seen through the process, and thanks to you and winning international and the course and everything, that I've been able to kind of let go of some of those things, some of those external projections of strength and all these other things, because really you're just hiding inside, just hoping no one's going to see you. And like my thing was like, I'm not good enough. So all the things that I've done over my life were to project, look how good I am. I'm needing validation and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I think it's really cool how what you're saying is about being grateful for it too, because it's brought me a lot of amazing things. I wouldn't have probably been doing this course. I wouldn't be on this thing with you right now if I hadn't have had that. But now it's just like, well, like what you said, just okay, it's there, but now I can let it go because it's adult. So it's really, really cool. And so
I'd like to jump in quickly there and ask you a question, because I know a lot of people who are listening would be thinking, and I've had this question pop up a lot. Well, a lot of people listening want to be really successful. And if I, to a certain degree, demonize the drive that came from that place of insecurity and
100%.
go, well, what happens off the back end of getting that awareness? Is it actually good if it's going to potentially take away some of that drive?
Yeah.
For me. So I'm curious to know from your perspective, when you became aware of these drivers and the projecting, how has it affected your life, for the good or for the bad? I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been doing a lot of personal development, whether it be books and seminars and all these types of things for a long time. And I was aware of a lot of these things, but I just didn't have the level of control over them. And I didn't really truly see the absolute depth that it had completely written my whole life. So I knew that, I wasn't good enough, because that was something I learned through seeing a psychologist when I was a kid. But so I guess now, to answer your question, is I don't feel like it's taken away any power, any drive. I definitely feel like I get to pick and choose now. So instead of me being the emotion and the thought, I get to sit back and go, oh, okay, yes, there's this drive from this insecurity, but now it's already who I am now. It's not actually something I need to drive me. I've got a bigger picture of like what I want to do. And through my journey of going through this wave of insecurity and fear and projection and wanting to be successful and then failing, and that's why I do what I do now, because I want to help other guys, be able to shortcut them. I spent 15 whatever years trying to go through this. And I know that, sometimes in a 1 hour phone call, I can untake the bail off for someone in 90 minutes. So like, that's the cool thing. So there's no real, I think it's a positive thing. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
For yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just thought it'd be interesting for your viewers to kind of make sure that they understood that. And for anyone that might have been thinking, okay, what happens if you do? Because some of the most successful people in the world are driven from huge insecurity and they don't have awareness over it. And as a result, there's deep suffering that happens in their life. And if you did take away, or if you did create awareness on it, it would stop their drive for a lot of people. And you could go, well, what the fuck? I want to be as successful as possible. And if you told me 2 years ago when I started meditating, this is probably going to take away a little bit of your drive in the short term, because that's the key, the short term, because I had to learn how to be driven in it from a more authentic place, then I probably wouldn't have done it, because I wasn't interested in joy or fulfillment, to be honest with you. At that stage, it was just, I wanted to go as big as possible. And success was more of a priority for me than feeling good. But what happens is, after you learn to become aware over what's driving you, you learn to become driven from a different place, a place of true service. And I believe that, like you mentioned, if you can witness what's driving you, then you can see in advance when it's becoming destructive. And in my business, when I had 25 staff and I was making certain decisions about how the business was going to grow, when profit wasn't the only thing driving me, that insecurity of needing to look successful and be successful drove my decision making, which meant that I made poor decisions at times. But as soon as I became aware of it, in scenarios where I had to make decisions, now all of a sudden I can get objective, because I can witness what's going on, instead of being like, nah, we should get this, or we should do this. It's like, let's say, for example, I need to hire someone. If I'm needing to succeed, I might have just made a bad hiring decision because I'm under some imaginary sense of urgency to rush to get some achievement.
100%.
Which, if it's a wrong hiring decision, it's going to backfire and actually set back the progress. And I've done that a few times in the past. Whereas now I'd be like, well, I'm not in a rush. I want to grow quickly, but that's definitely not the right hiring decision. And because I can see that the insecurity of me wants to make that hiring decision to speed up the growth, the more grounded version of me can be like, and actually that part of me that wants to make the hiring decision is coming from insecurity. Bad call. Don't hire them. And then 2 weeks later, I might hire the right person, which will actually see me grow faster. An interesting concept.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give? Obviously, we're going to have some people listening that either in a job that they don't like, maybe you've got a business that they feel stuck in, don't know how to grow it. Maybe it's not even business related, it's health and happiness. And I know you've got some really amazing perceptions on masculine and feminine relationships. A lot of the guys I speak to are just feeling like they're in the rat race. Relationships of family, they're usually between kind of like that 35, 45 shifting age. What advice would you give to these guys in terms of like, I call it, just wanted to ask you the 5 to thrive. So number 1, in happiness. Okay. 2 is health, 3, mindset, 4, business, and 5, love. So what were your top tips? So let's start with happiness for these types of guys. What's your best tip for these guys for happiness?
Yeah, I would say, happiness would come from being able to recognize your progress and find gratitude. The gratitude gets thrown around a lot these days. I feel like it's because it's so simple, kind of like meditation. It really does have the value skipped. Some people skip and miss the value because of how simple it is. But happiness comes from gratitude, and you can see that again. You got to listen to this concept because, again, it's an obvious, it could seem like an obvious one, but just think about when you see somebody that has nothing that's happy, and then you see someone that's wealthy that's not. And I was the wealthy person that wasn't, not all of the time, but some of the time, like when I was doing really well, I was living in like a $1,600 per week, 4-story house, had like a supercar, was able to travel anytime, had my gorgeous partner, and I was still getting frustrated, pissed off, being grouchy, like just not fulfilled. And then sometimes it would take the shock of watching like a movie, like if anyone's seen the movie Beasts of No Nation. It's like a hardcore Netflix movie about child soldiers, and you watch a movie like that, or Machine Gun Preacher.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Poverty-stricken movies, and you're like, wake up, dickhead! Like you've got such an amazing life. So find the joy within the moments, the presence.
Yeah.
And it can
but
change.
It's that old pattern that's driving you to not realize how grateful you are because you're constantly just chasing that next thing, waiting for that validation. Yeah. 100%.
So that gratitude, what were the other 4?
So the next one is health. Like I know you're someone who looks after their health. That's my, where I go with stuff as well, health and mindset. So how much does health, in your opinion, play a role in, again, what we just said before about happiness, but also within business?
Can you remind me of what the other ones are as well? Because there's a concept.
So it's mindset, business, and love.
Okay, cool. So from a, I'm just going to say a concept that I think would overlap with a few of them, and then we'll try to
go for it, man. Go for it.
We'll fill in the gaps with what
100%.
But this definitely overlaps with happiness, and it definitely overlaps with health. See, I see there's 2 kind of modes you can be in. You can kind of be in your ego mode, or you can be in a state of essence. And there are different activities in life that when you do them, they naturally slip you into one of those 2 states. And I call one category of these things ego traps, and I can't remember what the other ones were. It's like something to do with essence. And so most of what society looks for is short-term gratification, and these are ego traps, right? And because we don't feel naturally filled up in terms of who we are, we grab for these other things like porn, sugar, alcohol, any substances,
distractions.
Sex. Yeah, distractions, absolutely. Distractions, movies, entertainment, gossip, comparison, social media is probably one of the biggest ones. So all of these activities, the more that you can cull these activities one by one and start to do things that promote a state of essence, the more of a state of love you'll be in, the healthier you'll be. And your mindset will be very strong as well. Because what happens is when you're searching for distraction all the time, your ability to be productive and get shit done and be able to remove the noise from your mind and know what's next and lean into it and choose what's important and really move those things along. When you're distracted or looking for short-term gratification, it's so hard to think clearly. And so I'll mention some of the things that I do to help promote a state of essence. Cold showers, meditation, movement, breathing, talking, actually speaking with friends, socializing, connecting. And there was one other one. I think what I'm thinking it was the unusual one was speaking. So it's like, if you do any of those things and see how you feel after doing that activity, whether like the main four are movement, speaking, breathing, and meditation. If you do these four things, every time that you do one of these things, you'll notice yourself naturally more present afterwards. Like it can happen really quickly. Like right now, if you and I we may as well do it. Just took like 4 deep breaths because we're already present. I don't know about you, but I'm not thinking about anything else. Like in my realm, I'm just like here with you because we're speaking. But if I'm, when you're in one of those shit states and you're like feeling a bit low or anxious or depressed, usually your body language is like quite low and you're very still. You don't move much. If you go for a walk or you have a cold shower or you start speaking really fast, all of a sudden, like it's almost like it's cleansing your body and just gets you back into a state of essence.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And what's really cool, is that a couple of things that you mentioned, like speaking to your friends, that's going to release oxytocin in the brain. That's the love drug. That's going to make you feel good. Movement, that's going to release all those other endorphins, serotonin and dopamine. So like, not only are you getting that level of presence because you're doing it, but you're actually getting these beautiful chemical rewards from the brain, which is going to want to make you build these habits and do them more and more and more as you get less and less distracted. With like one of my kind of ego or whatever traps is movies, because it's just such a comforting thing if you're busy and because you're not thinking there. But I read this book and it said that when you do alcohol or drugs or watching movies, you actually drop under consciousness, not like where you're actually in line with it or above it. So those exercises you were saying is actually where you go into this higher state of consciousness, and alcohol and watching movies drops you below consciousness. Interesting.
That's very interesting. It's a really cool point. And I think another future pace of the listener's thought process or the viewer's thought process is, does that mean that I can't watch movies? Does that mean that I can't have sex?
Exactly.
Sports? No, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means where's it coming from? Because let's say you want to watch a movie, if you're feeling like absolute, or if like you find yourself consistently grabbing at something, you no longer have influence over that. It actually has influence over you. So you lose control over your life. But if you're like, you know what, it's Saturday night or Saturday or Friday night, or Thursday night, and I want to catch up with a friend and watch a movie, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with sex. There's nothing wrong with a warm shower. None of this stuff is a problem unless you're leaning on it as a crux consistently. If you have a really shit day and you want to give yourself some grace and you want to watch a movie because you're feeling like shit, in my opinion, that's cool. It just depends upon you know yourself better than what I know the viewers, or the viewers. They know themselves better. You can only know when you're leaning on something as a crux. So you've got to be able to be honest with yourself and be able to determine whether or not you think this thing's got a hold of you or whether you've got a hold of it. But I can promise you, if you do an experiment and you start really getting all of these short-term gratification habits out of your lifestyle, then you can just examine the difference of how you feel, and your productivity, your ability to achieve and be successful.
Yeah. I find those things are all like little, little comforts that we do, like what you're saying is it's all right to do them. But if you notice yourself, which I do sometimes, and I ask myself, have I just been triggered, or am I trying to seek some comfort here because there's some discomfort somewhere else? Am I trying to, comfort some sort of fear or some sort of procrastination, or is this really just, me just wanting to actually sit down and watch a movie? But again, it just comes back to that awareness, which is what meditation and the other present things that you said was so good for, because that's when you have more of that in your life, you have that ability to know what's actually going on. Do you relate to that?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I've been doing meditation for the last couple of years. I'm one of those, like, everyone's got, or usually people have things that they just try to push onto other people.
Yeah.
Kind of like meditation's one of those things I'm pretty shameless around, where I just push it. I'm just like, this is something that you got to do. It's really fucking powerful. And especially because I went into it as a skeptic, or with my achiever script trying to tick spirituality. And then I went in and it dramatically changed.
It blew your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not in a heightened way either, like, whoa, I just went psychedelic and all deep and stuff. It was just like my life, in terms of the way I showed up, started to shift over time. I remember saying to my meditation teacher when I learned to meditate, and by the way, if you're listening to this, learn to meditate.
You must.
It's not just meditate, because it's still good. Mindfulness is still fantastic, but there's different types of meditation. And if you actually invest in a meditation teacher that can facilitate how it can be done correctly, it's a different experience. Because for myself or anyone that I teach to meditate, after we learn, it's a twice a day, 20 minutes per time practice. Whereas like before that, I used to listen to guided meditations, which are still fantastic, by the way, but they're nowhere near as powerful as the consistent practice of 20 minutes twice a day. And when I did my Learn to Meditate course with Laura Poole, who was a lady that I learned to meditate through, I asked her, I looked at her, and she was embodied. I could tell that meditation has rubbed off in her personality, and she was super chill and calm and grounded. And I was like, I really resonate with how embodied you are, and I want to learn how to embrace that as a flavor in my personality. I said, how long did it take for you to be able to become calmer in your life and more grounded? And she said, it'll take 6 years of meditating 20 minutes twice a day.
Wow.
And when I heard that, I was like, okay, wow, that's a big challenge, but I'm going to accept that challenge and play the long-term game here. Whereas if the average person that will meditate a guided meditation and fall asleep doing it twice a week or once a month or once a fortnight, they might be meditating. So I've meditated 1,000 hours over the last 2 years. So, let's say 3,000 hours will get you to that point where you're a lot more grounded. Than if you're meditating an hour a week, it's going to take you 60 years.
But let it just be said for the listeners that a good place to start, don't get thrown off, that a good place to start is definitely, you must do it. Like, it changed. I did have the apps, and I was going to, get a meditation teacher because I was struggling with anxiety, and I knew that it was like something that was holding me back, right? Because I would get triggered easily. And I had a client of mine at the gym, really, really successful guy. And he said to me, like, I was asking, what do you think? He was into meditation. And he said to me, Scotty, have you got an app? And I said, yeah, I've got 7 of them. And he said to me, well, and he said, I don't know what it was, but like, he just cut straight through me. He's a very charismatic guy. And he just said, shut the fuck up and meditate. And it just threw me off so much that I just did it. And from that day forth, I've been meditating once or twice a day. And it's probably been the number one thing that has spawned this whole new era of just calmness and ability to be able to, for someone who has had a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, to be really able to just slow right down and make, like what you said, is just better decisions. Be able to have aware of those habits and those things, not be reactive to people. Notice if it's an ego trap or something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, definitely I recommend at least either, if not doing a course, starting with an app, or just start, whatever you do, just start.
Yeah. I would say that anything is better than nothing. So 5 minutes a day is a huge win if you're not meditating at the moment. And for those who are like more in the growth obsessed, like really prioritize growth, then do a course and try it before you deny it. Like instead of just like putting it down and shutting it away, and just being like, I don't want to do that. You know, just do it for 60 days, 20 minutes twice a day. And if it doesn't make a profound difference, then stop. There's no point.
Try it on like a t-shirt. If it doesn't fit, take it off.
Exactly. But I would say there's true benefits that people would, because calmness is, like if you told me it's going to make you calmer really before I start.
Nobody cares about that much.
Yeah, I would say the two biggest things are energy. So the ability for it to, the second half of your day, double your productivity. Because usually we're quite productive for the first half, and then the second half it drops a bit. You double the second half of your day's productivity. And the second benefit is the awareness that you will speak about. Recognize where your gaps are at the moment on your growth journey. So it's like a turbo booster to your personal development journey, because you can't hide as easily, because you become a lot more observant of yourself.
Of your patterns.
Exactly. And that those two things are the real reasons why meditation are
100%. Yeah. I know what you said, doing it on the second half of the day. I'll get up at 4:45 and come 1 or 2 o'clock. I've been going. If I meditate, I'll do a 10-minute one in the morning, because I've got a bunch of other stuff in my morning routine, which I'm sure you do. But then in the afternoon, I'll do a 20, and it allows me to be able to do the second half of my day at a completely different level. So yeah, 100%. The energy is a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll say that I do 45 minutes twice a day. And I don't say that to be like, oh, look at the time. But I feel like it's a really good piece of feedback for you guys that are listening. That's someone that's growth obsessed. And I'll tell you, I'm fucking
and also obsessed. Busy. Like, because most people, they're the biggest, excuse that I hear, which excuses are valid, but if we want to get somewhere, you've still got to come up with a solution. And so like right now, they might not have 45 minutes, right? But if you sat down, took some time, planned ahead and created that 45 minutes because it was important to you, like someone like yourself, I think it's really cool to see someone who's got a successful business, can be successful, and still make the time for an hour and a half of this thing, because that's obviously how important it is and how valuable it is for your life. Absolutely. And Gandhi actually had a quote on this where he said, an hour a day, and this is Gandhi, so take it relative. An hour a day of meditation is good, but if you're really busy, then make it 2 hours. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. And the reason I feel like that's valuable is because if I contextualize it for myself, if I'm busy or I've got something important going on in my life, I intuitively go, I've got to, like, I feel, I don't know, you guys will probably have some version of this in your life where something has that much of an effect on you, that if something's important is coming up in your life, like I got to get it in today. Like maybe on the day that you got married, you'd be like, I always feel good after a workout, so I'm going to make sure I work out on my wedding day or whatever. For me, meditation's one of those things. I've got a few different things that I do every single day, but yeah, it's something that makes me get a lot more out of the day. Cool. Let's keep going. Let's move on. So in terms of, like we talked about personal development before, all these things that you've accomplished and there's a lot of guys out there that go, yeah, well, okay, that's you. You're special. You had a scholarship at 13. You had a golf thing, That's not me. It could be from all different parts of Australia, different circumstances. Now, we know it wasn't the perfect upbringing. You had some tumultuous relationships and things going on, but what would you say to people that are saying, well, that's just you, I couldn't do that. What kind of things would you share with them to say, okay, well, this is where you're at. This is what the type of mindset you should be having. What sort of mindset have you had that made you these things that these people could adopt?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really great question. I would first and foremost say that you shouldn't be trying to be like me. Like my thing's not better than where you're at. It's just different. I'm just like representing my life for what's relevant for me, and I'm chasing what I think's going to be a really great reflection of my preferences and strengths and weaknesses and what I want to achieve in the world for me. And just because I'm on this path or have done these things, that doesn't mean that my life's any better than your life. But I would say that instead of endeavoring for, because a lot of people get taught what they should desire, like society labels money, jobs, like it depends what's hot in the media, what their friends are going to think. And if you ask yourself the question, if no one knew what I was doing, would I still be pursuing the same goals? And a lot of the time it's no. And so I would endeavor the listeners to get really courageous and just pause for a second, just stop the distractions for a couple of hours, one day, maybe on a weekend, and just go blank canvas, get out a pen and just start writing down. Like if no one else knew what your goals were, or what you weren't going to get contrasted with what other people knew you were going to be doing, would your goals be the same? And if not, what would they look like? Because I've actually done a bit of this and I haven't really announced much of it yet. But it's relevant to you as well, Scotty, being a client. But I'm really pivoting strongly to the areas that I love the most, which is podcasts and speaking and running like small mindset courses. And although I've got like a bunch of clients and a very profitable business that I've spent many years setting up and I can make money very easily through that, a lot of it's becoming a little bit less relevant for where my heart lies. And if no one else knew about what I was doing, would I be doing the exact same thing? Well, I'm really starting to align with what I think just me and my best self would enjoy doing the most, where I feel like based on my strengths and weaknesses, I can bring the most value to the world. And I think that just once I align to that, because if you choose yourself what you want to do, and it's really important for you and you only, then the only person that's driving you to make it happen is you. And I think that if it's really aligned with what you want, and it's because it's very hard to be driven doing something that you don't actually want to do to impress somebody else. If you like studying really hard at school and you don't even like school, it's like the worst thing in the world. Or studying hard to be a doctor, you don't even want to be a doctor. Pretty hard. But as soon as you go into something that you enjoy, there's this extra flare of
oomph,
momentum. Yeah, it's real extra oomph.
Definitely.
So that's a bit of I know it's not answering the question exactly how it was intended, but I really feel as though if you're listening to this, finding out what your path looks like for you and nobody else, and then figuring out like, do I really want this? And then the answer to the question would be, understand that where you are right now, let's say you're in a job that you don't like and you want to be doing your own business and you know that's what you want to be doing for you. Understand that no matter what you do, it's going to have benefits and drawbacks associated with it. And this is from the teachings of Dr. John Demartini, who talks about polarity and balance and neutrality in the universe, which essentially means there's always balancing pros and cons to everything. So the reason it's valuable to recognize what these are for where you are and where you're going is that if you think that where you are right now is shit, then you're seeing more drawbacks to where you are than benefits, which is not accurate. It's not really what's going on. It's just how you've chosen to. And that means you lack gratitude for your current situation, and you're going to be suffering until it changes. Okay? But also for where you're moving, if you're seeing more benefits than drawbacks for where you're going, there's a bunch of, because it's not more benefits.
They're hidden.
They're hidden. And
they're going to be there.
And then when they come out, they'll throw you. You won't be ready for them. And they'll really
freak out and you give up.
That could happen. Or you could just be like, have a warped perception of what it's going to look and then be all disappointed in how it ended up because you thought it was going to solve the innate lack of fulfillment you're feeling in your life or something. So I think just understanding in it, and I would call that groundedness, understanding benefits and drawbacks. Now be grateful for where you're at and then actually be grounded about where you're going so you can future pace the sacrifices that'll be necessary and all the drawbacks to what you're pursuing so you can prepare, like you can get ready and you can prepare better for what you're going to go through. And that way you're going to be, it's very hard to stop someone that knows what they've got themselves in for. Like if you're in for a fight, you know exactly everything about that other fighter, there's nothing that's going to surprise you. You're going to be very grounded. But if you've got no idea and you're underestimating, you just walk in going, this is going to be easy. And all of a sudden the person's got like a mean left hook that you're not ready for. A much higher chance you're going to get beaten.
So that, how you were talking before about having maybe setting some time aside, that's where you're going, if no one was listening, if no one was watching, if I could wave a magic wand and be doing X, and you're writing down what your dreams and goals are, then you're saying to yourself, okay, well, what are the benefits and drawbacks? So on a list from that thing of me staying the same and of me achieving this, because there'll be both for both. There'll be benefits of staying the same, and there'll be drawbacks, and there'll be benefits and drawbacks of achieving that thing. Like, for instance, maybe you won't have as much time for your family, or maybe you might have this, or maybe staying the same means you've got more time to go fishing, or whatever it is. But knowing that will allow you to have more alignment with it, and less things coming up.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. And so once they've done this, in terms of just actually having confidence to actually go and achieve it, they say, okay, great. Ryan and Scott have been talking about, I've got this thing, I've taken the time out, I'm feeling pumped, but I'm freaked out. Like, I've got a family, or I don't have the money. What I think would be really helpful, and we'll just finish up soon, is just essentially like, what's that next step? Like, a lot of guys I speak to at conferences, is the number one thing that they're talking about. They don't believe in themselves. So what's the journey that you think in terms of like going, okay, I've got this dream now I need to have a belief? Is it having a coach? Is it doing, having a morning routine? Is it just taking action and just being courageous and just taking some small steps, or all of the above?
Well, they're all very helpful things you mentioned. So you definitely, you know what you're talking about, Scotty. But I would say that three things that create confidence, in my opinion, is action, control, and results. So this is like one part of what I want to mention. So if you, let's say, for example, well, you know how you feel when you first start going into the gym and you've never been there before, and you kind of like half go, half don't. Sometimes you go, you relapse often, you're not feeling very confident with it. You're not in control of that area of your life. You feel less confident. But when the guy's going 5 times a week, the way that he walks into the gym versus the person that's kind of like relapses quite regularly is very different. Usually it's a lot of arrogance.
Very situational.
Yeah, I would just say that's control. So if you think about how confident you feel like how confident you feel when you're in control of an area, like if you're smashing your career and you really get your job done well, you're hitting your KPIs, you're feeling good about it, you're in control of that area of your life, and that brings a lot of confidence. But even if you don't get a result, but you're taking action, that also creates a lot of confidence. But they are escalating in terms of their potency of how confident it makes you from in that order of action first. Then it's even more confidence building to be in control of an area where that action becomes habit. And then when that habit starts to produce the results, the highest form of confidence. Because if you're smashing an area of your life, you feel very confident in it. So, and I would say, like, for someone starting out, my tips, because there was a lot of different pieces in that question. If someone's starting out, understanding the worst case scenario of what you're going to pursue is actually pretty liberating, I feel. Because if you can come to terms with the worst case, and in Australia or the Western world, the worst case usually isn't that bad. So it might be, you lose 30 grand and you move in with a friend for a period of time, or, you got to go back to a job. If you're going to have to go through and you've planned for worst case, then it's like, okay, cool, I've got 6 months to try to make this work. If it doesn't work, I go back to a job that I don't like. That's not that's not that painful. Like, that's not even a big deal. Even if you lost everything in the Western world, you're most likely going to be sweet if you've got some kind of support network. Like, so I feel like if your worst case scenario for pursuing your dreams and it not going in the right speed of what you hoped, because if you're resilient, it'll happen no matter what, but in the right speed of what you hope. Worst case scenario is 10 times to 100 times better than most people from the Eastern world's scenario. I think being across that is really empowering. So piece that I'd mentioned.
And so I guess being a little less attached to all of the comforts of life and being willing to kind of, willing to put some things on the line to achieve your dreams is what's,
Or to be different in every case, but just being across what worst case scenario would look like. Comforts are subjective. So someone might say, I'm comfortable if I've got a roof over my head. Some people might be like, if I go to a 2-bedroom house, it's like more than 20 kilometers out of the city. That's like death. Exactly. It's like understanding what the worst case would look like for you, or what your worst boundary is. And then like understanding at what point you'd stop if you pursued something, if it got close to to going past that boundary.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, so the last question I had for you is, obviously this program's called the $1 Million Mindset. And so what the $1 Million Mindset is, it's not about making $1 million. It's about having a mindset that you wouldn't trade for $1 million. Warren Buffett was asked. Yeah. So Warren Buffett was asked, which I think you've also said or spoke about before, if he could actually trade, if he got asked the question, if you had to give up one thing, either all of your money or your mindset, which one would you give up? And of course he says his mindset, not his billions of dollars. He's one of the biggest, most famous investors in the world. But he'd give up his mindset. He would give up his millions and billions though, because with his mindset, that's what allows him to be happy. That's all the learnings of life and everything like that. So my question for you is, and this is going to be a bit of a theme in all of the podcasts for all of the guests, is what would you, if I would give you $1 million, would you give up your mindset?
Well, no, because I've spent a lot more than $1 million on my mindset. I've spent over 500K. I spent over 500K in personal development.
What about $20 million?
$7 million I've spent learning in my business. So, I definitely, I've already spent over that for my mindset, but 20, no.
Yeah.
Because
what about 100?
I wouldn't.
There'd be no money, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I love the fact that you're escalating it, because there would come a point where some people would say, yes, but what I've realized recently, in fact, it became a problem in winning the business that you're a client in, just as a vulnerability, where I actually had a problem because I didn't care about making the money to such an extent that I wasn't even as motivated to do, it became difficult to drive towards it, because I've gone through having so much money and realizing what a little impact it makes.
Yeah.
And I swear, you got to go through it yourself. You can listen to different people say the same message, because I did, and it didn't change at all. Want to be more successful. But then when I had it, and I'd heard it 1,000 times before, money doesn't make you happy. It's the broadest, lamest thing I'd ever heard in my life. But then when I achieved it, and I was like, oh, fuck. Because I've been on a 2-year journey of unraveling the whole achievement versus fulfillment paradigm. And riddle. And it doesn't make you happy. It doesn't make you comfortable, or not having it and getting in massive debt could make you unhappy. That's a thing. But it's a reality that you've got to sample yourself.
Well, I think the reason why I started to ask guys that was because I noticed that they just weren't valuing how important that their mindset plays and all these things. They've got all these problems in their life that they're trying to solve, yet might not be, reading books is such an easy investment. So it's really like, if you can go, okay, well, this is worth $1 million to you. Like, I spoke to a guy, and I said to him, if I give you the strategy to achieve this goal that you want, and I give you the support, do you think you'd be able to do it? And he said, no. I said, why not? He said, I'm not sure. I don't believe in myself. I don't have the motivation. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy, all the normal list. And I said, what about if I said to you that you've got 3 months to do it? I'm still giving you the same things, nothing else that you said no to, but I'll give you $1 million. And he said, yeah, I reckon I'd be able to do it. I said, why? He said, because $1 million would change my life. And I said, okay, so how would it change your life? And he said, well, I'd pay off my house. And I said, well, how would that change your life? He said, well, I'd have more time for my family. I'd be less stressed. I'd be happier. I said, so basically what you're doing is you're paying $1 million to be less stressed and more happy. It doesn't matter about the house, and you can have that today. So it's like, through actually growing your mindset, if people could see that like what you're saying, you've had to spend millions of dollars, you've had this business and all these things, and really what makes you happy now is meditating, speaking with friends. Those were some of the things like that, a lot of people are striving for this end thing, but the $1 million mindset is right here, right now. If you start to do some of these things, read some books, speak to your friends, have some fun with your family, that's what's so cool.
I love that, man. That's really cool. Little anecdote. It's powerful. Yeah. I really like that, Scotty. That's a ripper.
Well, thanks so much for speaking with me today, Ryan. I really appreciate your time, your love, and everything that you've put into this. I hope the listeners have had a great time. And so, if anyone wants to follow you or find you, where can they find you?
Insta or Facebook under / the Ryan Magic.
Yep.
I'm actually changing my name online to Ryan Magic.
Love it. Ryan Magic.
And this is one of the factors why, so it feels good to be able to say it. Ryan
Awesome.
Magic. If you just go to ryanmagic.com, you'll be able to find out about upcoming courses or just follow on the journey. So that's it, man.
And do you want to quickly tell people what you actually do? I don't think we spoke about that. I said you were the coach's coach.
Yeah. So what I've spent the last 5.5 years doing is helping coaches get clients. Now what I'm really focusing all my heart and energy into is helping people make magic, make magic happen in their life, which is personal development, meditation. I feel like there's 3 phases. There's like the spiritual side, there's the emotional side, like the personal development, limiting beliefs, breaking emotional barriers, etc. And then there's learning how to take fucking action and be courageous and make shit happen. So I'm going to be running workshops in this. I've got my first one on the 26th of October, which is going to be cool. Good little 100-person seminar, which is going to be fucking fun. And I do meditation courses as well. And I literally do all of this for free. I feel like that's like the sign for me that it's like, this is it. And so yeah, just check us out, ryanmagic.com, and follow along. And if I can give you as much value as possible through the social media platforms that I'm on, then that for me is a massive gift. And if you feel called to come along to an event at some point, it'd be fucking awesome to meet you as well.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, for everyone that's listening, that is the $1 Million Mindset. You heard it first. Thanks again, Ryan, for joining in, and tune in next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Awesome, man. That was